What if you could take a service or an app that you created and deploy it to AWS with nothing but natural language prompts? In this video, I'm going to test drive using Windsurf and using Pulumi MCP to build out the infrastructure to set up a simple service with a data store and then get it all deployed to AWS. Let's see how that goes. All right, here I am in Windsurf. Here is my app, and I have it running locally here. It's QR code creator. Right, so I could generate QR codes in various styles, and we also have a backend to just store usage data. But what I want to do is get it into the cloud. So I'm going to come here into this cascade window. I'm going to pick the model, and I'm going to pick coding because I want it to do some coding, right? And then I'm just going to say, then I'm just going to ask it to deploy to AWS. The way it's going to establish what to do is based on this Palumi MCP server that I have installed. You can install MCP servers by going to the MCP store and searching and then adding them. And then once installed, you can see them here, right? And you have the various commands that they can do. And I'm going to be using this, or I guess Windsurf is going to be using this deploy to AWS command to set up our infrastructure. All right, so we can see that it's called the Pulumi deploy to AWS tool, which is telling it to examine the code. And it sent it back what it found, and now it's giving us some options. And the nice thing is the Pulumi MCP tool, right, knows a lot about AWS. AWS, is made of lots of different Lego bricks. And which Lego bricks are the best for this particular case? That's the great type of guidance we can get here. This one doesn't have manual scaling. This one has a higher base cost. So yeah, let's go with Lambda. So I tell it I want to use Lambda out of the options, right? And then it adds that to its checklist here. And then it's off. It's creating my index.ts TypeScript file. You can say it raises up changes here, so I can accept all or accept one by one or reject. I'm going to accept it. You can see right over here, it's building out a folder for my infrastructure. Now, if I had wanted to keep my infrastructure in Python, I could have specified that as a preference, but it's chosen TypeScript, which I think is actually a solid choice because the types are actually quite helpful when we're working with infrastructure as code. Now we can see as it works through things that the infrastructure as code becomes pretty handy because, right, it's finding type errors. So it got back some great instructions on how to ship the infrastructure from the Pulumi MCP tool, but then in writing the code, it's made some incorrect assumptions. Type errors are catching that, and it will iterate until it can get a preview working, hopefully. Oh, and there we go. The preview is working. Next, right after preview, we're going to try a Pulumi up. Let's see what code we have. So we have basically, we have a VPC, we have a security group, we have security group rule. Here's our Redis cluster. I mean, it's really Elasticache, but we know it's Redis. Lambda role, and then here is our function. Using Python 3.9, we give it the Redis URL. And then here's our function URL. So it seems to be doing quite well, actually, at following instructions. If you're not familiar, by the way, MCP stands for Model Context Protocol. And, each of these services has a number of actions it can do, and it has a description for them. And that description is put into the model's context. So then it then knows, like, oh, here's a tool that I can call. Here's what that tool does. And we have a list of those. And that's what enables it to see, like, oh, I can do a Palumi CLI preview. But of course, this works not just for Palumi MCP, but any of the various MCP servers you might want. Not to say these are required, of course. You can easily have the agent do the same actions via the command line, right? We can call Palumi CLI up at the command line, but some things, like our AWS deploy tool that we used, actually the agent is going to put together a whole bunch of context to send over to the tool and get some feedback back. And that is not actually available at the command line. It's a special feature of the MCP server to help it work with agents. Now it seems like when Windsurf is calling these MCP tools, you can see the result here as things go. So I can click through and see how this deploy is going. Now we can see we have set up our function URL. All right, let's go back to Windsurf. Look at that, 35 resources set up. And, all right, here's the moment of truth, right? We have our Lambda function. We have our Elastic Cache. We have our VPC. We have some nice instructions, but let's try it. Well, internal server error. That's not quite what we're looking for, is it now? All right, let's go back. Yes, open. All right, well, let's keep using the agent, please. So I can tell it, hey, it doesn't seem to be working. Let's iterate on this. All right, now deployment complete. So we have function URL, we have a Redis connection, QR generation, and our stats endpoint. Let's try this out. We'll copy this URL. We'll go here. Look at that, QR code creation. Oops. We do examples. And we have our Redis backend as well. So we should be able to bump those numbers. There we go. And we have this nice endpoint that tells us what's going on in Redis, right? All right, so what did I learn? So this works surprisingly well. It took a little bit of time for it to set it all up, but now I have this nice infrastructure folder here, right? And all my infrastructure is described in this TypeScript program, which is great because I'm going to version this. I can make changes to it later on. This is my dev stack, but I can do a production one. I can use all the great things about using a programming language to set up my infrastructure, right? It's all here for me to review and change. Here's my VPC, here's my function, here's my Redis URL. But I didn't need to know all the details. For instance, I am not super familiar with how Elastic Cache works, but it got it working. I didn't have to worry about it too much, and it's in place, and I can make future changes. And that's the power of using an agent with this knowledge built in and using Pulumi MCP, which has a lot of great best practices that it can draw on. So if you want to check out Windsurf or Pulumi MCP, check out the links below.